I only thought about it, then she turned and purred, "Careful, human, I can hear everything." The Solvarii diplomatic vessel glided toward Meridian Station's docking arm with predatory grace. Dominic Vale watched from the observation deck, his tablet chiming with another protocol revision, the fourth in as many hours. He'd memorized everything days ago, but his hands needed something to do besides shake. 6 months of preparation, humanity's first formal negotiations with a telepathic species. They'd requested him specifically, though the reason remained unclear. His superiors called it an honor. Dominic called it pressure. The docking clamps engaged with a shudder through the deck plating. He straightened his charcoal jacket and headed for Conference Room 7. Commander Fontaine waited at the entrance, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. "They're ready when you are," she said. "I'm ready." The lie tasted normal. Years of diplomatic theater had taught him to control what people saw, even if his tone sometimes betrayed him. Honesty wrapped in professional packaging. The inner door slid open. 3 Solvaria stood near the viewport. Dominic's breath caught. He'd studied the images, the biological briefings, the limited footage. None of it prepared him for Ashara Valin. She stood center, blue skin shifting with the light, deeper at her joints, almost luminescent along her throat. Her ears rose from her hair in elegant points, twitching as he entered. Large, luminous eyes with vertical pupils tracked his approach. She wore something between uniform and formal wear, fitted to a body that moved with liquid precision. God, professional assessment dissolved into raw appreciation. The curve of her hips, the graceful line of her neck, the way her tail swept behind her in measured arcs. His mind cataloged details it had no business noting. The slight part of her lips, how station lighting caught in her hair, the lean muscle in her arms. What would she feel like? Is that skin as soft as it looks? Would she make a sound if I touched those ears? He forced himself forward, extending his hand. "Ambassador Velen, on behalf of humanity, welcome to Meridian Station." His voice stayed steady while his thoughts spiraled into territory that would end any diplomatic career. I wonder what she looks like without that uniform. Would she purr if I kissed her neck? I want to find out. Want to spend an entire night discovering what makes her. Ashara's ears flattened, her pupils dilated, consuming her irises. A sound rumbled from her chest, low, involuntary, distinctly feline. A purr. She caught herself immediately, eyes going wide. Her hand had been reaching for his, but now hovered between them. The purr cut off. Understanding flooded in, cold and mortifying. Telepathic species. Oh, fuck! Her lips curved. She closed the distance in one fluid step, leaning close enough that he caught her scent, cinnamon and electricity. "Careful, human," she said, her voice resonating in his chest. "I can hear everything." The room felt suddenly small. Dominic's hand hung frozen. Every protocol evaporated. She'd experienced every thought, every fantasy, every explicit image from the last 30 seconds. Heat crawled up his neck. He should apologize, step back, salvage humanity's first impression. But her eyes held something that stopped his retreat. Not offense. Interest. Her ears tracked his movements. Her tail swayed in patterns that seemed anything but diplomatic. She hadn't moved away. He started. What could he say? Sorry for the mental strip show during first contact. Ashara tilted her head, predatory and curious. "Most diplomats think in layers," she said quietly, though her aide stood meters away. "Surface thoughts, careful and composed. Deeper thoughts hidden behind mental discipline. Do you know what I heard from you, Dominic Vale?" She used his full name like a caress. He shook his head. "Truth," she said. "Raw, unfiltered, honest truth. No barriers, no deception, no mental walls." She took his hand, her grip warm and firm. "In 300 years of Solvarii diplomacy, do you know how rare that is?" "I'm guessing very." "Unheard of." She didn't release his hand. "My people shield our thoughts, present only what we choose. Every negotiation is theater beneath theater, lies wrapped in mental static, but you—" Her purr started again, quieter but unmistakable. "You can't hide it all, can you?" Dominic's pulse hammered. Every instinct screamed he'd sabotaged humanity's most important mission. But her eyes held something like wonder. "No," he admitted, "I really can't." Good. Ashara's smile widened, showing teeth just slightly too sharp. She turned to her aides, spoke flowing syllables in her language, and they departed. She looked back at him. I propose new terms. You don't try to control your thoughts. I respond to what you're actually thinking, not what you're saying. She moved toward the conference table, tail tracing patterns. No diplomatic performance, just honesty. Dominic searched for words. That's not how negotiations work. No, Ashara agreed, settling into a chair with feline grace. It's not, but I'm curious to see what happens when we try. She gestured to the chair across from her. Despite every diplomatic instinct, despite knowing this would complicate everything, Dominic sat. Her eyes never left his face. She was listening to every thought in his head, and somehow that knowledge only made his thoughts louder, more vivid, more honest than anything he'd ever spoken aloud. The negotiation hadn't even started, and he'd already broken every rule. Ashara leaned forward, elbows on the table, chin resting on interlaced fingers. The pose was casual, but her gaze was anything but. Tell me, Dominic, she said, his name a low purr on her lips. What are you thinking right now? Everything. He was thinking everything. About how the starlight from the viewport caught in her eyes, about the diplomatic catastrophe this was becoming, about how badly he wanted to touch her despite every reason not to, about the way her attention felt like standing in a spotlight made of pure focus. That this is either the best or worst way to start an alliance, he said. Perhaps both, her smile turned knowing, but at least it's interesting. Her tail swished once, definitive. Now then, shall we begin? The formal meeting lasted 20 minutes before Ashara declared it postponed. We need to establish parameters, she said, rising with that liquid grace, privately. Commander Fontaine's expression suggested she had opinions about privacy between diplomats during first contact, but she simply nodded and left them alone. Ashara moved to the viewport, her reflection ghosting against the stars. Walk with me, she said. Wasn't a request. They took the central corridor toward the station's observation lounge, their footsteps echoing in different rhythms. Dominic kept 2 feet of space between them, hyper-aware of every movement she made. The way her tail swayed, how her ears tracked sounds he couldn't hear, the shift of muscle beneath her fitted uniform. Stop it, she can hear you. Her soft laugh confirmed it. Don't, she said without looking at him. Don't try to control it, that's the whole point. The point of what, exactly? Of seeing if honesty can actually work. The observation lounge was empty at this hour, a curved room with viewports on 3 sides. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble that humanity had finally left behind in pursuit of the stars. Ashara settled onto one of the low benches, patting the space beside her. Dominic sat, maintaining that careful distance. How does it work? He asked. The telepathy. We don't read minds completely, Ashara said, angling toward him. Not like your fiction suggests. Strong emotions broadcast clearly. Surface thoughts, especially vivid ones. The rest is impressions, intent, desire. The way she said desire made heat crawl up his spine. So you heard, everything you thought when you first saw me? Yes. Her ears twitched forward, every detailed fantasy, every explicit thought, every reaction. I'm sorry. Are you? She leaned closer and suddenly that careful distance evaporated. Because your thoughts say otherwise. She wasn't wrong. Being near her amplified everything. The urge to touch, to test if her skin felt as warm as it looked, to find out what other sounds she could make besides that involuntary purr. My people shield ourselves, Ashara continued. From childhood, we're taught mental discipline, walls, barriers. By the time we reach adulthood, broadcasting openly is considered... She paused, searching for the word. Obscene, intimate, something done only with chosen partners. And I just broadcasted your attraction to me with the mental equivalent of shouting. Her smile turned sharp. In front of my aides, during formal first contact. Dominic dropped his head into his hands. I've sabotaged everything. No, her hand touched his shoulder, light and warm. You've done something I've never experienced. You've been completely, utterly honest. He looked up to find her face inches from his. Do you know what Solvaria politics are like? She asked. Centuries of telepaths who've perfected deception despite our abilities. We lie with our mental shields, presenting false surfaces while hiding true intentions. Every negotiation is layers of betrayal wrapped in courtesy. Her hand slid from his shoulder to his jaw, tilting his face toward hers. "But you can't lie to me at all, can you?" "No," he admitted. "I never could lie well, even to humans." "A diplomat who can't lie," her thumb traced his cheekbone. "How did you survive?" "Selective truth, misdirection, saying what I mean but controlling how I say it." His breath caught as she leaned closer. "But that doesn't work with you." "No," she agreed, "it doesn't." Her purr started again, deeper this time, deliberate. Her eyes held his, pupils wide and dark. "What are you thinking right now?" she whispered. "That I want to kiss you, that this is a terrible idea, that I don't care." The words tumbled out, helpless. "That you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I've wanted to touch you since the moment you turned around." "Then touch me." He did, threaded his fingers into her hair, feeling the soft fur of her ears. She made a sound, half purr, half sigh, and closed the final distance between them. The kiss was electric. She tasted like something foreign and intoxicating, her lips soft against his. Her hands found his chest, fingers spreading over his jacket. The purr vibrated through her whole body. Dominic pulled her closer, and she came willingly, practically climbing into his lap, her tail wrapped around his forearm. Every point of contact sent sensation cascading through him. Her warmth, her scent, the alien softness of her skin. His thoughts spiraled into pure want, and she responded to each one. When he thought about the curve of her throat, she tilted her head back. When he wondered about the sensitive spots behind her ears, she guided his hand there and gasped against his mouth. The station alert blared through the lounge speakers. They broke apart, breathing hard. Ashara's pupils were blown wide, her expression dazed. Dominic's hands were still in her hair, and he forced himself to release her. "Security breach in the diplomatic wing," the automated voice announced. "All personnel report to designated stations." Commander Fontaine's voice cut through on the general channel. "Vale, we need you here now." Ashara was on her feet instantly, all traces of softness gone. Her hand dropped to where a weapon would hang if she'd been armed. "How long have I been away from my quarters?" she asked. 30 minutes. "Someone's accessed my files," her tail lashed once. "I'm coming with you." They ran. The diplomatic wing was controlled chaos when they arrived. Security personnel swept corridors with hand scanners. Commander Fontaine met them at the entrance to Ashara's assigned quarters. "Nothing taken," she said, "but someone definitely accessed the terminal, tried to wipe their tracks but left traces." Dominic moved into the room, standard diplomatic suite, larger than his but similarly appointed. The terminal sat dark on the desk. "What were they looking for?" he asked. Ashara's expression had gone cold. "Treaty terms, human military deployments, trade route proposals." She touched the terminal, and it flickered to life under her biometrics. "Everything you'll be negotiating over the next week." "False alarm?" Commander Fontaine suggested. "System glitch?" "No," Ashara and Dominic said simultaneously. They looked at each other. Her ears were flat against her skull, tail rigid. "Someone's watching us," she said. The thought that had been forming in Dominic's mind crystallized into certainty, and he watched her expression shift as she heard it. "Someone who knew we'd be alone," he said aloud. "Who knew exactly when to search your quarters." Ashara's hand found his, her fingers lacing through his own. "This was never just about negotiations," she said softly. "Was it?" "I don't know." But even as he said it, pieces were connecting. His specific selection, her interest in his transparency, the convenient timing of their attraction. Nothing was coincidence in diplomacy. Commander Fontaine cleared her throat. "I'll post guards. You two should get some rest." But as Dominic looked at Ashara's troubled expression, he knew neither of them would sleep tonight. Something larger was moving around them, and they'd just become pieces in someone else's game. Dominic's quarters were smaller than Ashara's, but he kept them meticulously organized. She stood in the center of the room, her presence making the space feel even more confined. "You didn't have to walk me back," he said, palming the door lock. I wanted to. Her tail swished once and you wanted me to. No point denying what she could hear in his thoughts. The kiss in the observation lounge still burned on his lips, and every moment since had been an exercise in restraint. Someone's manipulating us, he said, forcing logic through the haze of want. The breach was too convenient, too precisely timed. I know. She moved closer, each step deliberate. Does that change what you're feeling? No. Good. Her hands found his chest, sliding up to his shoulders. Because it doesn't change what I'm feeling either. Ashara, I've spent my entire life behind mental walls, she said, her voice dropping to something raw. Every interaction filtered, every thought controlled. Do you understand what it's like? To be surrounded by people yet completely alone? Her fingers traced his collar. Then you walked into that conference room and you were just open. Every thought, every feeling, completely unguarded. Her purr started again, vibrating against his chest. I've never experienced anything like it. Dominic's hands found her waist, feeling the warmth of her through the fabric. This is a terrible idea, he said. Yes. Someone's watching us, using us. Probably. She leaned in, her breath warm against his throat. Still want me to leave? His answer came in pulling her closer, in the way his hands tightened on her hips. Words were unnecessary when she could hear every thought in his head. The want, the need, the way she'd consumed his awareness since that first moment. She kissed him with an intensity that stole breath. Her hands moved to his jacket, finding closures with practiced efficiency. He matched her urgency, discovering how her uniform fastened, feeling the smooth warmth of her skin beneath. They stumbled toward the sleeping alcove, shedding clothes between kisses. Her body was all lean muscle and alien grace, blue skin luminous in the dim lighting. She pushed him onto the bed, climbing over him with feline precision. Tell me, she breathed against his ear. Tell me what you're thinking. You, he gasped as her mouth found his throat. How you feel, how you taste, how I want. She responded to each thought before he could finish it. When he thought about her ears, she guided his hand there, purring deep when he stroked the soft fur. When he wondered about the sensitive spots along her spine, she arched into his touch. Every fantasy from that first meeting became reality under her hands, her mouth, her body moving against his. The telepathic link worked both ways. He could feel her reactions, not through thoughts but through the echo of sensation, pleasure feeding back between them. When he touched her, he felt his own touch through her perspective. When she kissed him, he experienced both sides of the contact. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. She took control with predatory confidence, and he surrendered gladly. Her hands mapped his body while her mind mapped his thoughts, learning what made him gasp, what made him arch into her touch. The purr never stopped, vibrating through both of them. Time dissolved into sensation. Her skin against his, the taste of her, the sounds she made when he found the right spots, the way she read his body through his thoughts, anticipating and responding before he could ask. When they finally collapsed together, breathing hard and tangled in sheets, the station's night cycle had fully engaged. Dim emergency lighting painted everything in shades of blue. Ashara lay against his chest, one leg hooked over his, her tail draped across his thigh. Her purr had quieted to a subtle vibration. Your people call my species beautiful, she said into the darkness. Exotic, alluring. You are. We use it. Her fingers traced idle patterns on his ribs. Diplomatic advantage. Distraction. My government selected me for this mission partly because human psychology responds to feline features. She tilted her head up to look at him. Did you know that? Does it bother you? Should it? He stroked the soft fur behind her ear, feeling her lean into the touch. You could look like anything and I'd still be drawn to you. It's not your appearance, it's your mind. Her expression softened. We're so isolated, she said quietly. Telepaths who can't trust each other. We've built walls so high that we've forgotten what real connection feels like. She pressed closer, and he wrapped his arms around her. Why did they really send you, he asked. The Solvarii government. Why request me specifically? Her body tensed. You know something. His heart rate picked up. I can feel it. What aren't you telling me? She pulled away, sitting up, the sheets pooled around her waist. For a long moment she stared at the wall, her tail wrapped around her own leg. They know about your condition, she finally said. What condition? The neural atypicality that makes you incapable of sustained deception. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. It's in your psychological profile. Your government thinks it's a quirk, a minor disadvantage you've learned to work around. Dominic sat up slowly. But you don't think it's minor? My government requested you because of it. Her voice went flat, controlled, because someone who can't lie to a telepath would be the perfect intelligence source. The words hung in the air like a blade. They want me to accidentally broadcast classified information, he said. And you, the betrayal hit him like a physical blow. You were assigned to extract it. I was assigned to keep you close. Her hands twisted in the sheets, to build rapport, to encourage you to think about sensitive topics while I listened. He stood, searching for his clothes with hands that shook. Please. How much? His voice came out harsh. How much have you already taken from my head? Nothing. She was on her feet now, reaching for him. I haven't reported anything. I swear it. Why should I believe you? You just admitted you're a spy. Because I'm telling you now. Her voice cracked. Because I can't do it. The conspiracy runs deeper than intelligence gathering. They're planning to frame humanity for the security breach. Use your leaked information as proof that humans can't be trusted. Start a conflict. A conflict, the words felt distant. You mean war. A faction within my government wants it. They see humanity as a threat. She grabbed his arm, her grip desperate. But I won't be part of it. I won't use you like that. Why not? Isn't that what you were trained for? She flinched as if he'd struck her. Because everything I felt tonight was real, she said. Everything I told you about connection, about loneliness, about never experiencing honesty, all of it was true. I may have been sent here with orders, but what happened between us? Her voice broke. That was real, Dominic. That was mine. He wanted to believe her, wanted to trust the emotion in her voice, the vulnerability in her eyes. But trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Get out, he said. Please, get out. She gathered her clothes in silence, her movements jerky and wrong. At the door, she turned back. They'll come for you soon, she said. The conspirators. They'll try to extract everything you know, with or without my help. You need to leave the station. And go where? Anywhere. Her ears lay flat. Just go. The door slid shut behind her, leaving Dominic alone in the darkness, wondering if anything about the last 2 days had been real at all. Dominic didn't sleep. He spent the hours before dawn accessing station records, following digital breadcrumbs that painted an ugly picture. The security breach hadn't been random. Someone had systematically accessed files across 3 departments: human military deployments, treaty negotiations, his own psychological evaluations. His terminal chimed. Commander Fontaine's face appeared on screen. Vale, we've got a situation, conference room now. He dressed quickly, his mind racing through possibilities. In the corridor, he nearly collided with Ashara. She looked as exhausted as he felt, her eyes shadowed. They stared at each other for a heartbeat before she spoke. I accessed the security footage, she said. All of it. I know who's behind the conspiracy. Show me. They diverted to a service corridor, Ashara pulling up a portable display. The footage showed Seraph, her own aide, entering restricted areas with access codes that shouldn't have existed. Meeting with Counselor Theros Keth in shadowed corners. Planting data chips in multiple terminals. Theros, Dominic said, he's the one who requested me specifically. He's been planning this for months. Ashara's fingers flew across the display. The goal was never negotiation. It was provocation. Use your inability to shield thoughts as a weapon, extract intelligence, then blame humanity for the breach. And you were supposed to help him. She met his eyes. Yes, the honesty cut deeper than any lie could have. But I won't, she continued. I brought you evidence. We can expose them. They'll have contingencies. People like Theros always do. Then we need to move faster. An explosion rocked the station. Emergency alarms shrieked. The lights flickered to red backup systems. Dominic's comm crackled with Fontaine's voice. All personnel to emergency stations. We've got hull breaches in sections 9 and 12. This is not a drill. Ashara grabbed his arm. That's near the diplomatic quarters. They're making their move. They ran. The corridors filled with personnel rushing to emergency posts. Another explosion shook the deck plating. Through a viewport, Dominic glimpsed debris spinning into space. They're going to kill everyone to cover their tracks, Ashara said. Not everyone, just the witnesses who matter. Dominic changed direction, pulling her toward the command deck. They need someone to survive, someone to tell the story they want told. Commander Fontaine had turned the command deck into a war room. Damage reports scrolled across multiple screens. She spun when they entered. Vale, what the hell is happening? Sabotage. The Salvaria conspirators are trying to start a war. That's a serious accusation. I have proof, Ashara said, holding up her portable display. Security footage, communication logs, financial transfers. Counselor Tharos Keth has been orchestrating this since before the negotiations began. Fontaine studied the data, her expression hardening. How many of them are there? On this station, at least 6 that I've identified, Ashara said, but they have support back on the Salvarii homeworld. Another explosion, closer this time. The deck tilted before stabilizers compensated. They're targeting life support next, Dominic said. They want to make it look like humanity sabotaged the station. Create an incident that demands military response. Then we stop them. Fontaine opened a comm channel. All security teams converge on life support. Shoot to disable, not kill. We need prisoners. Wait, Dominic said. An idea was forming, dangerous and probably insane. There's another way. He turned to Ashara. How many telepaths are on this station? 7, 6 conspirators and me. Can they all hear me if I broadcast loudly enough? Her ears pricked forward. If the thoughts are strong enough, emotionally charged enough, she studied his face. What are you planning? Honesty. He moved to the communications console. The one thing they can't fake or manipulate, my complete inability to lie. Dominic, can you amplify it? My thoughts. Broadcast them station-wide through whatever frequency telepathy works on. Fontaine stepped forward. That's not possible. It is, Ashara said slowly. Bioelectric fields. If we route his transmission through the station's electromagnetic grid, modulate the frequency. Her fingers flew across the console. It would require direct physical contact, a constant link while he broadcasts. Will it work? I don't know. No one's ever tried. She looked up at him. And it will hurt. Forcing that much emotional content through an open channel, it could damage you psychologically. Do it. She hesitated only a moment before nodding. Her hands found his temples, her touch gentle despite the urgency. Think everything, she said, every memory, every feeling, every truth you know. Don't hold back. Dominic closed his eyes and let the walls fall. He thought about meeting Ashara, about that first rush of attraction, the kiss in the observation lounge, making love in his quarters, the betrayal when she revealed the conspiracy, his certainty that despite her orders, despite her original intentions, what they'd shared was real. He thought about the evidence, Seraph's movements, Tharos's communications, the systematic planning that had gone into framing humanity. He thought about his own psychological profile, the neural atypicality that made him useless at deception. He thought about peace, about the potential for alliance between species, about the waste of starting a war over manufactured evidence and political manipulation. Most of all, he thought about Ashara, about trust and vulnerability and connection, about how she'd risked everything to warn him, about how he knew, absolutely knew, that her feelings were genuine because he'd felt them echo through that telepathic link. The emotional weight built like pressure behind his eyes. Ashara's grip on his temples tightened. Her purr started, not from pleasure but from strain as she channeled his thoughts outward. Through the viewports, he saw the Salvarii vessel, saw lights flickering aboard it as his broadcast reached them. On the station, security teams reported conspirators suddenly dropping their weapons, clutching their heads. It's working, Fontaine breathed. Dominic pushed harder. Every fear, every hope, every classified piece of information he knew, and more importantly, every piece he didn't. His ignorance was as honest as his knowledge. No military secrets because he wasn't military, no tactical information because he was a diplomat, not a spy. Nothing to extract because there was nothing there. His legs buckled. Ashara held him upright, her own body trembling with effort. Blood trickled from her nose. "Almost there," she gasped. "Keep going." He thought about humanity's desire for peace, about the flawed, honest, messy way humans approach the universe, about how they'd sent him, their most transparently awful liar, because they'd actually wanted honest first contact. The irony would have been funny if everything didn't hurt so much. The final push, his absolute certainty that Tharos's conspiracy existed, the evidence, the proof, the undeniable truth transmitted through pure emotion that no mental shielding could fake. Ashara collapsed against him. Dominic caught her as they both went down, tangled together on the deck. His ears rang, his vision swam. But through the viewports, he saw the Solvarii vessel powering down weapons, saw escape pods launching, conspirators fleeing rather than facing what he'd just exposed. Fontaine was shouting orders, security teams reporting captures, the fires in sections 9 and 12 contained. Dominic looked at Ashara. She looked back, both of them breathing hard. "Did it work?" he asked. Her smile was exhausted but genuine. "Every telepath in range heard everything," she said. "Your truth, your honesty, your inability to deceive even if you wanted to." Her hand found his. "They can't claim conspiracy now, not when 6 different telepaths received the same undeniable evidence from a mind that can't lie." "Good. Good," she echoed. They lay there on the command deck, hands clasped, while around them the crisis slowly resolved into aftermath. And Dominic thought, clearly enough that she'd hear it, that despite everything he'd do it all again. The emergency council convened 6 hours later. Dominic stood before representatives from both species, his head still aching from the broadcast. Ashara sat with the Solvarii delegation, her posture rigid and formal. They hadn't spoken since the command deck. Elder Miara presided, her silver-tipped ears marking her age and status. She studied Dominic with eyes that had seen centuries. "Ambassador Vale," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority, "you have made serious accusations against Counselor Theros Keth and members of my delegation." "Accusations I proved through telepathic broadcast," Dominic said. 6 of your people received the evidence directly from my mind, a mind that, as Ambassador Velen can attest, cannot sustain deception. Miara's gaze shifted to Ashara. "Is this true?" Ashara rose, her movements controlled. "Yes, Elder. I can confirm that Dominic Vale possesses a neural atypicality that renders him incapable of maintaining mental barriers or constructing false narratives. Every thought I received from him during the broadcast was genuine." She paused, "including his evidence of the conspiracy." "Evidence you helped him obtain," Theros said from his position across the chamber. "After you were seduced by human primitiveness, you betrayed your people for physical attraction." Ashara's ears flattened. "I betrayed a conspiracy that would have started a war based on manufactured evidence," she said. "My loyalty is to the Solvarii people, not to your political ambitions." "You were assigned to extract intelligence and instead chose to—" "I chose truth over manipulation," Ashara interrupted, "which is more than you've done in 3 centuries of service." Miara raised a hand, silencing them both. "We have reviewed the security footage, the communication logs, the testimony of 6 telepaths who received Ambassador Vale's broadcast." Her expression remained neutral. "The evidence supports his claims. Counselor Theros, you and your co-conspirators will face tribunal." Tharos's face twisted. "You're making a mistake. Humanity is a threat." "Humanity is what we make of them," Miara said. "Just as they will make of us what we show them. Take him." Security personnel escorted Theros from the chamber. His allies followed, their ears pinned back in defeat and shame. Commander Fontaine stepped forward from the human delegation. "Elder Miara, the question remains, where do we go from here? This station has suffered significant damage. Trust between our peoples has been compromised." "Trust," Miara echoed. She looked at Dominic. "Tell me, Ambassador, can humanity be trusted?" "Honestly?" Dominic felt the eyes of both delegations on him. I don't know. We're flawed. We make mistakes. We have factions that fear change and others that embrace it too quickly. He met Miara's gaze. But we came here wanting genuine alliance. We sent our most honest representative, not because we're naive, but because we believed honesty was more valuable than strategic advantage. And you, Ambassador Velin, Miara said, can the Salvaria be trusted? Ashara's tail wrapped around her own leg. We have spent centuries perfecting deception despite our telepathy. We've built walls so high that we've forgotten what connection means. Her eyes found Dominic's. But some of us want to remember. Some of us are willing to take those walls down. Miara was silent for a long moment. Then perhaps, she said, we should try something unprecedented, a treaty built not on careful negotiation and strategic positioning, but on the transparency Ambassador Vale demonstrated. She looked between them. With both of you as architects. Dominic blinked. Elder, with respect, Ambassador Velin violated her original orders to help me. Your government may consider her. Compromised? Miara's expression softened slightly. She chose integrity over orders. That is not weakness, Ambassador. That is exactly what this alliance needs. She stood and both delegations rose with her. However, Miara continued, her tone sharpening as she looked at Ashara, you did violate protocol, engaged in unauthorized intimate contact during active negotiations, shared classified information with a foreign diplomat. Ashara's ears drooped. Yes, Elder. Therefore, you are hereby removed from the Salvarii Diplomatic Corps. The words landed like a physical blow. Ashara's composure cracked, her shoulders falling. Dominic started to object, but Miara wasn't finished. Instead, you will serve as special liaison to the Human Alliance, a new position for a new type of diplomacy. Her eyes glinted. One that requires someone who understands both species, someone willing to be honest even when it's difficult. Ashara's head snapped up. Elder, you will work directly with Ambassador Vale to establish the framework for this treaty, report to both councils, serve as living proof that connection across species is possible. Miara's expression turned almost warm. If you're willing. Ashara's voice caught. Yes, Elder. Then this council is adjourned. Both delegations will reconvene in 2 days to begin formal negotiations under new protocols. The chamber emptied in clusters of conversation. Ashara remained frozen until only she and Dominic were left. He approached slowly. You okay? He asked. Oh, I thought she was going to exile me, Ashara said. Or worse, instead She laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. She's assigning me to work with you. Is that a problem? Is it a problem for you? She turned to face him fully. I lied to you, Dominic. I was sent to manipulate you. Yes, I chose to reveal the conspiracy, but that doesn't erase what I was supposed to do. No, he agreed, it doesn't. Her ears drooped again. But you chose differently, he continued. When it mattered, you chose honesty, chose to risk everything to warn me. He stepped closer. That's who you are. Not the orders you were given, but the choice you made. How can you trust me after that? Because I felt what you felt, he said simply. That telepathic link works both ways, remember? I know your feelings were genuine. I know you fell for me as hard as I fell for you. That's not something you can fake, even if you wanted to. Her eyes searched his face. I do love you, she said quietly. I know it's too soon, too fast, too complicated. But it's true. I know, he smiled. I can feel it every time you look at me. That's not fair. You can't read my mind. Don't need to. You purr whenever I'm close. As if to prove his point, the sound started, soft and involuntary. She laughed, swatting at his chest. Shut up. Make me. She did, rising on her toes to kiss him. It was softer than their first kiss, less desperate, but somehow more meaningful. A promise instead of a question. When they broke apart, Ashara laced her fingers through his. So we're really doing this? Building a treaty together? Looks like it. It's going to be complicated. Both our governments watching. The pressure of being the first successful human Salvarii partnership. Probably, Dominic agreed. But we've already survived conspiracy, sabotage, and my complete inability to keep my thoughts to myself. How much harder can treaty negotiations be? She laughed, the sound warming him from the inside. You have no idea what you're in for. Then it's a good thing I have an expert guide. He pulled her closer, one who can hear exactly what I'm thinking and call me out when I'm being an idiot. That might be a full-time job. Good thing we'll be working together. They walked to the observation deck where this had all begun. Earth hung in the distance, and beyond it, the stars stretched endless. More Solvarii vessels had arrived, along with human ships, the beginnings of something larger than either of them. Ashara leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Her purr vibrated against his chest, steady and content. What are you thinking? She asked. That this is either the beginning of a beautiful alliance or the most complicated relationship in human history. Why not both? Both works. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head between her ears. Both definitely works. Her tail wrapped around his leg, and he smiled at how natural it felt. How right. The future spread out before them, uncertain and challenging and full of possibility. Two species learning to trust. Two people learning to love across the gaps between them. And for once in his life, Dominic Vale's inability to lie wasn't a weakness. It was exactly what they needed.